Social movement. Definition of social movement. A social movement is a collective effort by a group of people to promote or resist change in society. It is an organized and sustained form of collective action aimed at bringing transformation in social, political, economic, or cultural structures. Sociologists like Herbert Blumer define social movements as collective enterprises to establish a new order of life. Nature of social movements. Collective action involves large groups working together. Shared ideology, members have a common belief or goal. Long-term process, unlike protests, movements can last for years. Change-oriented either seeks to bring change or resist it. Organized leadership, often led by activists or social leaders. Causes of social movements. Relative deprivation, when people feel deprived compared to others. Social inequality, discrimination based on caste, gender, race, etc. Economic factors, unemployment, poverty, and economic disparities. Political oppression, lack of rights and freedoms leads to movements. Cultural factors, conflicts over traditions, language, or religion. Types of social movements. 1. Expressive movements. Focus on individual or group emotions rather than direct social change. Example, religious revival movements, spiritual movements. 2. Migratory movements. Involve mass movement of people from one place to another for better opportunities or survival. Example, the Great Migration of African Americans from the rural South to urban North in the U.S. 3. Utopian movements. Aim to create an ideal society by changing existing structures completely. Example, communal societies like the kibbutz movement in Israel. 4. Revolutionary movements. Seek radical change in the political or social system, often through conflict or overthrowing authority. Example, the Russian Revolution, 1917, Indian Independence Movement, 1947. 5. Reform movements. Demand gradual change within the existing system rather than overthrowing it. Example, women's rights movement, civil rights movement in the USA. 6. Resistance movements. Oppose change and aim to maintain traditional structures. Example, anti-globalization movements, movements against land acquisition. Social movements in India. Social movements in India have played a crucial role in shaping the country's social, political, and economic landscape. These movements have emerged due to factors such as economic disparity, caste oppression, gender discrimination, and demands for regional autonomy. 1. Movement based on disability in India. Disability movements in India have emerged to demand equal rights, accessibility, and social inclusion for people with disabilities. The disability rights movement gained momentum in the 1990s, leading to the Persons with Disabilities, Equal Opportunities, Protection of Rights and Full Participation Act, 1995. The 2016 Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act, RPWD Act, recognized 21 disabilities and ensured better provisions for education, employment, and social security. Organizations like National Association for the Blind, NAB, and the Disability Rights Alliance, DRA, have actively advocated for accessibility and policy changes. 2. Women's movement. The women's movement in India has focused on gender equality, women's rights, and protection against violence and discrimination. First phase, pre-independence, led by social reformers like Raja Ram Mohan Roy and Ishwar Chandra Vijayasagar, focusing on abolishing sati and promoting widow remarriage. Second phase, post-independence, struggles for equal rights, economic independence, and laws against domestic violence, dowry, and sexual harassment. Contemporary movements, the #MeToo movement and protests against crimes like the Nirbhaya case, 2012, reflect the continued struggle for women's safety and justice. 3. Regional movements. Regional movements in India have emerged due to demands for autonomy, separate states, and cultural preservation. Telangana movement, 2009 to 2014, led to the formation of Telangana as India's 29th state. Bodoland movement demanded a separate Bodoland in Assam for the Bodo people. Gorkhaland movement, a long-standing demand for a separate state in North Bengal. 4. New social movements. Reason for new social movements. New social movements focus on issues like environmental protection, human rights, and identity politics, rather than just economic struggles. New social movements in India. Chipko movement, 1973, aimed at protecting forests in Uttarakhand. Nirmata Bachao Andolan, 1985, opposed displacement due to the Sardar Sarovar Dam. LGBTQ+ rights movement, led to the decriminalization of homosexuality in 2018. New social movements and Gandhian philosophy. Many new social movements in India adopt non-violent resistance, inspired by Mahatma Gandhi. The Chipko movement, for example, followed Gandhi's method of peaceful protest. 5. Class-based movements. Peasant movements. Peasant movements have played a key role in opposing feudal oppression and land exploitation. Tapaga movement, 1946-47, demanded 2/3 of the produce for sharecroppers in Bengal. Naxalite movement, 1967-present, a radical left-wing movement demanding land reforms. Farmers' protest, 2020 to 2021, protested against the 3 farm laws introduced by the Indian government. Workers' movements. Workers' movements have fought for labor rights, fair wages, and better working conditions. Textile mill strikes, Bombay, 1982, led by trade unions for workers' rights. All India Trade Union Congress, ATUC, 1920, one of the first trade union organizations in India. 6. Caste-based movements. Dalit movement. Dalit movements emerged to fight caste discrimination and untouchability. Dalit Panthers, 1972, inspired by Ambedkar, they fought for Dalit rights and social justice. Beam Army, a contemporary Dalit rights organization promoting education and empowerment. Backward class castes movements. Self-respect movement, 1925, led by Periyar against Brahminical dominance in Tamil Nadu. Mundal Commission protests, 1990 and 2006, movements for and against caste-based reservations in education and jobs. C. Tribal movements. Tribal movements in India have fought for land rights, cultural preservation, and political autonomy. Santhal Rebellion, 1855-56, a major uprising against British exploitation. Jharkhand movement, led to the formation of Jharkhand as a separate state in 2000. Nyamjari movement, a tribal protest against bauxite mining in Odisha. Theories of social movements. 1. Deprivation theory. Key idea: social movements arise when people feel deprived of resources, rights, or opportunities compared to others. This theory suggests that individuals who experience relative deprivation, a gap between expectations and reality, mobilize to demand change. It is often linked to economic disparity, social discrimination, and political exclusion. Example: the Civil Rights Movement, USA, emerged due to racial discrimination and lack of equal rights for African Americans. Criticism: not all deprived groups start movements. Sometimes, movements arise even among relatively well-off individuals. 2. Resource mobilization theory. Key idea: social movements succeed not just due to grievances but because of effective use of resources. Resources like money, leadership, organization, and media influence determine a movement's success. This theory shifts focus from discontent to how movements are structured and sustained. Example: the Indian independence movement effectively used leadership, Gandhi, Nehru, funds, and networks to mobilize people. Criticism: it downplays the role of emotions, ideology, and grievances in mobilization. 3. Structural strain theory. Key idea: movements arise when societal structures fail to meet people's expectations, leading to strain. According to Neil Smelser, movements develop when structural strain exists, social problems like unemployment. People recognize the issue as unjust. A solution is proposed, and resources are available. A triggering event, protest, violence, accelerates mobilization. Example: the Arab Spring, 2010 to 2012, occurred due to political corruption, economic hardships, and growing dissatisfaction. Criticism: the theory assumes that strain always leads to a movement, but some societies experience strain without major uprisings. 4. Political process theory. Key idea: social movements arise when political opportunities allow for mobilization. This theory argues that people mobilize when political systems are weak, divided, or open to influence. It emphasizes 3 key factors: political opportunities, favorable conditions like government instability; mobilizing structures, organizations that help coordinate protests; framing processes, how movements present their cause to gain public support. Example: the Mundal Commission protests, 1990, 2006, were influenced by government policies on caste-based reservations. Criticism: it ignores movements that emerge outside of formal political structures, like cultural or religious movements. 5. New social movement, NSM, theory. Key idea: modern movements focus on identity, culture, and human rights rather than just economic issues. Unlike earlier class-based movements, labor, peasants, NSMs focus on environment, gender, LGBTQ+ rights, and peace movements. They emphasize decentralized leadership, social networks, and digital activism. Example: the Chipko movement, 1973, in India was not about class struggle but about environmental conservation. Criticism: the line between old and new movements is unclear, as many modern movements still involve economic issues. 6. Mass society theory. Key idea: social movements attract isolated individuals who feel disconnected from society. The theory suggests that movements provide a sense of belonging to people who feel alienated due to rapid social changes. Example: the rise of fascist and extremist movements in the 20th century, e.g., Nazi Germany, mobilized disaffected individuals. Criticism: it oversimplifies social movements by assuming that only socially isolated individuals participate.
Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you in next video.